ドジャースのブランドン・ゴームズ GM が日本時間29日に配信されたベースボールイズントボーリングに出演し、佐々木朗希獲得の舞台裏について語りました。動画内でゴームズ GM は佐々木から課された宿題や大谷獲得時との比較で苦労した点について話しました。また佐々木とのミーティング時にムーキー・ベッツが大きな役割を果たしたことについても触れました。これらの興味深い内容を日本語字幕付きでご紹介します。
The Sasaki pursuit it was a unique dynamic. I'm interested to hear from you, Brandon, of how unique it was. What was unique about it that maybe you didn't even expect? I know one thing is we were getting these Sasquatch videos of him throwing in Rogers Center or Echo Park. Like, well, unless he's throwing off a mound of dirt at Dodger Stadium, he's throwing somewhere else. So it
was a fascinating process in that every team, different free agents, there's times where it's like, hey, this may not make sense for this team. These are the teams we're kind of thinking are going to be in. Like, obviously, every team could use Roki Sasaki. And so that right there makes it unique. Then you add into it, like, okay, there's just not that much information about this guy. And you're hearing these different stories of like what will be important, what's not. So what we're trying to do is sell our organization as what makes the most sense. And then during the meetings, very thoughtful and very attentive, but not a ton of like back and forth. There's not a lot of questions being asked. So you kind of leave the meeting like, okay, I think we did well, but I'm not really sure.
It's different than Otani, though. I mean, not to compare the obviously different situations, but
yeah, it was different. So the Shohei one, the initial one, I was not here for. Obviously the free agent one was different, where I think Shohei, it's pretty clear kind of what he was looking for, and there was probably like a smaller amount of teams that made sense. Where Roki, everybody would be in. So I think those meetings, we would walk away thinking like, okay, I think that went well, but I don't have a ton of confidence. And that's kind of the feedback we've gotten from across the board. So it was really about like selling what we felt like was the most important things of our organization and hoping that those lined up.
So when did it feel like that you might, obviously he narrows down the teams, but when does it feel like you said, okay, we put ourselves in a pretty good position here?
I mean, yeah, once we get told we're narrowed down to the last couple of teams, like, okay, I feel better. But it wasn't until like we get the Shohei text that we're like, okay, there was a lot of it. The similarities with Show were that at no point did we feel great. Like, I think this makes sense. And I think we're in a good position, but you still have that like uneasy feeling in your gut of like, man, this, like the way this thing could swing, it's like, it's quite volatile. So we don't really know.
I mean, the Shark Tank guy missed a huge opportunity. I mean, he just did. Like, how can you not get off a plane to simulate that all over again? It would have been amazing. But that was the thing. I remember talking to you last year about that. Like, you guys were charting that flight the same way. Like, people think that you guys know, like, all this, everything that's going on, even with the Sasaki. It sounds like you don't, like, you all the way up until the end.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing. Like, we were riding the roller coaster of the flight to Toronto with Shohei, and the same thing, like, coming up through this, like, I just don't know. Like, I think we're in a good position, but I am like far from confident because, like I said, there was no way to walk away from those meetings and be like, yeah, we crushed it. Like, hey, I think we did well, but we don't know what happened in those other meetings either.
Oh, I want to know. But the last question about Sasaki is sort of looking forward now. It's a unique thing, right? I mean, that, one of the things that he had been reported that he really wanted to know from teams, and maybe you can confirm this about the project about, hey, why did my fastball velocity dip, right?
Yep.
So he's going into spring training with you guys now. With any player from Japan, it's a unique situation. So how are you guys approaching, now that we're a few weeks away, approaching his spring training, what you're going to do, what might be unique about how you're approaching it? Any insight you can give with that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like getting our trainers, our performance staff, our pitching coaches, like actually getting our hands on him out there, poured through hours and hours of video to be prepared for, that question that he asked. But now it's about like getting him in and then, talking to him along the way and making this very clear. And we do this with all our players. Like, this is a partnership. So obviously you've been incredibly successful. There are things that you have done that you want to keep doing. Great. Let us know. Here are things that we think could help. Let's all be open and collaborative, because there is no one way to do anything. When Yamamoto came and he's throwing his javelins and, the way he works out, like, great. Like, let's embrace that. Let's figure out how to help you continue to be successful. And maybe there's some stuff that works for us that we can implement. Maybe there's some stuff that we do that helps you. And, with Roki, it's going to be that partnership. And like, one of the things that, I think our group does so well is like, there's no like dictation of, hey, you're going to do this. Like, the player has to buy into what's going on and any adjustments that are going to happen. Otherwise, they just don't stick. Like, if you don't believe in what you're doing, you're going to abandon it the minute it doesn't have success, because at some point you're not going to have success doing anything, right? So we have to like come in, understand how he moves, all of these things, what he's trying to do, just get a better understanding of it all. And he's obviously been incredibly successful up to this point. So it's like, okay, let's go through your routine. And then we have to start tailoring it and figuring out, okay, here's the major league season. And I know Roki has said this and been adamant. He's like, I want to go earn a spot in that rotation. Now, what he's done in the NPB probably does that, and just the electric stuff and how he goes about his business. But he is very much of the mindset, like, I'm going to come in and earn a spot. I don't want anything given to me. So very cool.
I may have missed this. What, the 6-man rotation talk? Do you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think for him, it's going to be, we are going to get him ample rest, and it's going to be something that we continue to evaluate along the way. Obviously, when Shohei is back, it's just easier for us to do that and get extra rest when needed. But there could be times where he doesn't need it or needs more, or just like it is with all of our guys. So we have the flexibility on the front end with our depth and the number of guys that we have. Once Shohei comes back and joins the rotation, then it's far easier to work that in. And I think it was one of the selling points that we used. Like, we are just uniquely positioned to help you with your development in this way, where, we did it last year where we were plugging guys in and making sure Yamamoto was getting the appropriate amount of rest early on. And we can do it. It's challenging, but you can definitely do it. So it's prioritizing how to make sure guys ease their way into it and making sure you're setting them up for success.
I just this morning I saw Mookie over in Japan, right? Is that right? Yeah. And I love talking to Mookie. Usually he wants to talk about anything but baseball, like podcasting or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the evolution of Mookie, you've seen it from the Dodgers. I've seen it, somewhat from afar, somewhat close up. But the evolution of Mookie to be comfortable in what he is right now, which isn't always easy, right?
Yep.
And so I'm anxious to get your take of what you've seen from the evolution of Mookie since you've got to know him.
Yeah, I think obviously the player has continued to be more than incredible. His selflessness of changing positions and that superstar caliber player is not okay with just changing things up and going to, challenge himself and learn how to play shortstop on the fly. Watching him grow into, a leadership role and being more comfortable taking that on with us, because obviously when he came over, we've had we've had guys that have been here a long time. And I think he's coming into that, and then watching him in over the course of the year, and then in our meeting with Roki and the other players, and watching him really like dominate that meeting and just have his personality come out and give a riveting speech, and all of these things was incredibly impressive. And like, I commend him on that, because it's not easy as a superstar to go and continue on that journey. And I think he's really embraced that. And maybe it started with doing the podcast, but watching his personality come out and help, he's continued to help the organization in so many ways with, you know, even with that meeting alone was really impressive. So it's been cool to kind of see him. Yeah, it's weird to see to say a superstar to come out of their shell, but I think he's like starting to just find himself in a way that is like even more impressive of a person, because you always see it behind the scenes what a good dude he is, and how, you know, him being able to express that around other people or when we have meetings like this is awesome to see.
But I'm telling you, like, that it doesn't surprise me, but I'm happy to hear you say that in that meeting with Roki, he was this guy who was I would have met, he, like, I don't know if he led the meeting, if he was certainly more vocal than the other players, whatever it was, but I know that, let's say 6 years ago, that would have been very difficult for him. I know his intentions were good. I always remember Joe talking about the first meeting he had with the Dodgers, where he gets up in the clubhouse, he's like, I got to be a leader, and it was kind of awkward, right? But now in that room with Roki, I would love to be there, because I would love to hear the Mookie on the stool, like the Rudy, like this. Yeah. Hey, Roki, this is why you should be a Dodger, right?
It was awesome.
Really?
Yeah, it was really impressive.
That's awesome. Well,